Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Tuesday Mahabharata class. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha. Om Bhu Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitra Varenayam Vargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat Asto Ma Satgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityurma Amritam Gamya Om Sehnavavatu Sehnobhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi Om Shanti 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 Om. Let's open our Mahabharata books. Page number 74. And the title of this chapter is Krishna arrives in Hastinapura. And we know why he is going there. As a Shanti Doot, messenger of peace. He wants to put some sense into Duryodhana's mind that this war won't be good for anybody. So let's see what he says. The morning Krishna set out on his mission to Hastinapura, the strangest omens were seen. There was not a cloud in the sky, yet suddenly in diverse parts of the land, thunder and lightning erupted in the vacant azure, and uncanny rains lashed the earth. On that day, rivers turned around and flowed back to their sources. Deep and quiet wells gushed forth in geysers. On his way, Krishna saw none of these omens, but only nature's bounty. Trees laden with flowers and fruit, and birds singing in their branches to mark the Savior's passage. In every town and village he rode through, the people came out in crowds to greet the avatar, and they stood enchanted by the sight of him, blue and ineffable. At Vrikshthal, beside a pool of lotuses, Krishna stopped his chariot. Night grows on us, let us rest here tonight. Meanwhile, in Hastinapur, his spies came to Dhritarashtra in his sabha and said, "My lord, Krishna is on his way here, bringing an embassy of peace from the Pandavas." Dhritarashtra sent for Bhishma, Vidura, and Sanjay. Drona and Duryodhana were already in the court. When the Pitama and the king's brother had joined them, Dhritarashtra said in some excitement, "I have wonderful news. Krishna is coming to Hastinapur." Vidura, let no effort be spared to give him a grand welcome. All the Munis say no one on earth is as worthy of worship as Krishna. Besides, we need his blessings more than ever and his good offices. Open our wayside retreats for him along his journey, and when he arrives, we must receive him with gifts of chariots, elephants, and jewels. Krishna honors us by coming to Hastinapura. I will go out myself to welcome him. Vidura, you must arrange the reception. Overlook no detail. He will spend tonight at Kushthal and be with us by midday tomorrow. There was a brief silence in his court, and the king turned his face this way and that. He asked, Vidur, don't you approve? Don't you think Krishna deserves the gifts I mean to offer him? Why are you so quiet? His brother laughed. Of course, my lord, he deserves your gifts. Why, no man who was ever born into the world or even shall be is as great as Krishna. Not just your gifts, he deserves the very earth. Yet this is not what makes you so generous, nor is it any love for Krishna. You want to bribe the incomparable one. You mean to try to buy him to your side, to drive a wedge between him and the Pandavas with your gifts. You will not part with 5 towns to your nephews, and now you speak of giving horses and elephants, chariots and jewels to their messenger. I beg you, my lord, do not be foolish. Don't insult Krishna with such a barbaric gesture. He will not take what you give him, but scoff at you. His very life is bound to Arjun's. How can you hope to part him from Arjun and his brothers with your paltry gifts? If you really want to honor the Dark One, accept the terms he brings for peace. He comes in the hope that you and your sons will see reason. He comes in a last resort to make peace in the house of Kuru and save the world from war. Dhritarashtra, remember the Pandavas have no father. At least for Pandu's sake, think that you should be like a father to them. There is still hope, my brother, if you turn back to Dharma. Krishna will heal the bitterness between the Kauravas and Pandavas. He will even persuade Draupadi to forgive your sons for what they did to her. But you must take the first step towards peace yourself. No one can do that for you. The fate of the world as we know it is in your hands. I pray that you make the just choice, though I fear you will not. Duryodhana rose and surprisingly said, I agree with Vidura. It is foolish to think we can estrange Krishna from the Pandavas. He will laugh at you if you try to bribe him. Worse, he will think we are afraid of him. No, we must not insult Krishna by trying to buy him to outside. We must receive him with dignity, or we shall be the laughing stock of the world. Bhisham said, it will make no difference to Krishna if you honor him or not. He is above your honoring or insulting him, nor will you sway him with foolish gifts, because he is a man of truth. He comes not to seek some petty wealth for himself, but genuinely to secure peace. He comes to see you acknowledge the injustice done to the Pandavas. He comes with the faint hope that Dharma may be restored to the house of Kuru without bloodshed. The only way you can honor Krishna is to give the Pandavas back their kingdom. Duryodhana jumped up and cried, Pitama, you always take our cousins aside, but I will not give in to them or to you. I will never share what belongs to me. Why should I? After the Vaishnav Yagya, the kingdom is mine, and I mean to keep it. Bhisham said in despair, Dhritarashtra, the son of yours is so full of evil that he has lost his reason. I fear his time has come to die, and he will not listen to anything that might save him, and I cannot stand any more raving. Bhisham rose and walked out of the Sabha, and that was an end to the today's deliberations. Late next morning, Krishna arrived with Satyaki, and Dhritarashtra went to the city gates with Bhishma, Drona, and Kripa to receive him. Duryodhana went as well, and his brothers. The people of Hastinapura milled in the streets of the city of elephants to welcome the avatar. They reached out loving hands and chanted his name as he rode through them. The women flung flowers down on him from their balconies. Krishna came to Dhritarashtra's palace and was ushered into the Sabha of Hastinapur. The king had asked for a jeweled throne to be set beside his own, and Krishna was shown to that seat. When he had greeted the Kuru elders, the dark one sat chatting to the Kaurav princes, and he was full of smiles. It seemed this was another day like any other, and he had come to the city for a friendly visit. Then Krishna said, if you allow me, my lords, I want to meet Vidura in his palace and pay my respects to my aunt Kunti. Dhritarashtra gave orders for Krishna to be taken to Vidur's home. He sent word to his brother, and Vidur came in excitement to his door to receive him with argh. He at least was entirely aware who it was that honored him with a visit. When they sat together inside, Vidur asked, how are Pandu's sons, Krishna? I fear there will be a war between them and the Kauravas. Duryodhana is determined to fight rather than return a foot of land to his cousins. Krishna told him about the Sabha in Uplavya and all that was said on that day, last day, before he set out for Hastinapur. I have little hope that Duryodhana will turn back to Dharma now, but I thought I must come here to clear Vidur's name, Yudhishthir's name, so the people know that he still wants peace. Vidur bowed his head, and Krishna saw his eyes were full. He laid a hand on Vidur's arm and said, be consoled, Vidur. None of us can change fate, and everything that happens is for the best. Now take me to my Aunt Kunti. I am sure she is waiting to see me and have a news of her sons. When Vidur brought Krishna into Kunti's chambers, she rose with a cry and embraced her nephew. Oh, Krishna, I am so happy you have come. She made him sit next to her and held his hand tightly. She wept now and said, I feel so much stronger that you are here. Tell me about my sons. How are Yudhishthir and my Bhim? You know, Bhim was always his older brother's favorite. How did my boys spend their years in the forest with all the danger that lurks there? How did Bhim control himself for so long after the way Dhritarashtra's sons abused him? Ah, forgive me, Krishan. I know I am not waiting for you to answer my questions. I have waited so long to ask them that they will not come singly but all together. How is my Arjun, your friend? How did he conceal himself during the final year of the Agyatavas? I am surprised no one discovered my flame like son. And Sahadev, who is so delicate and sensitive, he looks like a grown man, but he is just a child at heart. And my youngest, my Nakul, my most handsome son at whom women always gazed, how did he hide his dark beauty during the final year? Krishan, how is Draupadi? I cannot think how she endured the hardship thrust upon her. Time and again, I see Dushashan dragging proud Panchali through the palace of Hastinapur. I see my sons standing with their heads hung in the Sabha, while Dhritarashtra's princes revived their queen. Only your grace saved her from utter shame. Kunti wiped her eyes and sighed, Krishan, though I have known great joy in this life, I have also suffered as few women do. First, I became a widow, and we came here to Hastinapur to live on the charity of those who did not truly love us. Then they tried to kill us. When at last we settled in Indraprasth, I thought our troubles are over. They were just beginning, and fate separated me from my sons. We have suffered enough. We also deserve some happiness after so many years of anguish. Tell my sons the time has come for them to show they are Kshatriyas. Tell them their mother says it is their dharam to fight, and if they don't, they are no sons of mine. She sobbed again. Krishan took her hands. Don't cry. Your sons have become great men by their long penance, and no force on earth can resist them now. Their night is ending, day is at hand, and victory. I promise you, Yudhishthir shall soon be lord of the earth. In Vidur's house. This is chapter number 12. Krishan walked into the Duryodhana's palace, and it was more opulent than Dhritarashtra's. In his garish sabha, Duryodhana sat on a golden throne with Shakuni, Karan, and Dushashan around him. They all rose when Krishan entered, and Duryodhana came forward, smiling to welcome the blue one. There was a place lower than Duryodhana's throne, set apart for Krishan, a silk-covered chair inlaid with ivory and precious stones. Krishan allowed himself to be led to it. Duryodhana said, Welcome to our palace, Krishan. Honor me by sharing a meal with us. Krishan replied, I must decline your invitation for the moment, Duryodhana. The Kaurav's eyes flashed. You wound me, Krishan. Why won't you eat with us? We have arranged music and dancing for you, as you love. Our cooks prepared a feast, but you went straight to Vidur's home. Why? A messenger may not eat until the task he has come for is fulfilled. That hardly matters. I have heard you say you are impartial in the dispute between the Pandavas and ourselves. We are fond of you, Krishan. There is no enmity between you and me. When we go to Upplavya, you stay with the Pandavas, don't you? There was an inscrutable look in Krishan's eyes. He said, I fear you will make me say things I never meant to. Duryodhana, one eats in another man's house out of a friendship, goodwill, or necessity. None of these applies between us. I do not care for the feast you have made for me. I never eat in a thief's home because his food is polluted, and I am not starving that I need your hospitality. Duryodhana's eyes blazed. Krishan would not be interrupted, though he spoke equally still. As for the Pandavas, I do not hold you and them in equal regard. The truth is, Duryodhana, I am the soul of the sons of Pandu. They are mine in a very special way because they are men of truth. You have shown repeatedly that you detest them. Often enough, you have tried to have them killed. You banished them by deceit, humiliated them in your sabha, and now you refuse to give back what is theirs. You are my enemy, Duryodhana, and I will not eat in an enemy's house. I will eat in Vidur's home because he is a friend who loves me. Krishn's voice and his presence were suddenly so awesome that even Duryodhan was tongue-tied. Smiling still, Krishna got up and walked out of that palace. He strolled down the open street and the people ran to him to greet him, to clasp his hand or offer him a flower. Bhishma and Krip came out and said, Krishna, we have a palace ready for you to stay in. He answered them, you are too kind, my lords, but I am going to stay with Vidur. They stared at him, but he waved to them and walked on to Vidur's home. Vidur washed Krishna's feet himself in some ecstasy that the avatar had chosen his home to stay in. It was late afternoon. They are together, and then Krishna said, I am little tired. I would like to rest for an hour. Your rooms are ready, Krishna. I will show you to them. When Krishna had slept, he rose and bathed, and now night had fallen. He went out to join Vidur. When they sat together, sipping wine in an open courtyard, with fateful stars shining down on them, Vidur said slowly, I think your coming here was a mistake, Krishna. Perhaps you don't realize how far down the road to ruin Duryodhana has gone. He is bent on having war, and nothing will stop him. He thinks he will win with superior numbers. He says he has Bhishma, Drona, Krip, Ashwathama, Karan, and Jayadratha with him, besides his brothers and the other Kshatriyas of the 11 Akshanis. How can he lose? Most of all, he depends on Karan. Ah, Krishna, how much I have tried to tell him that his sins are ranged against him, and they will drag him down to the death. How often I have begged him to relent. Not just I, but the other elders of the court. But he won't listen, and Karan, Shakuni, and Dushashan tell him to fight. They are so certain they will win the war. It is no use you're trying to make peace. Duryodhan is in no mood to listen to wisdom. I beg you, my lord, don't go to Dhritarashtra's Sabha. It's not a court of dharam anymore. I fear they will insult you, and the thought distresses me. Krishna said, Vidur, I am touched by your concern. I have nothing to hide from you, so listen to why I have come. I have not come with much hope that my mission will succeed, yet it is my dharam to try to save the lives of these men who seem so eager to die. If I do succeed, Vidur, I shall have glory, and even if I fail, no blame will attach to me. At least I will be satisfied that I spared no effort in a good cause. Every man can be redeemed. If a man has sinful thoughts, but does not translate them into evil deeds, no sin clings to him. So I pray it might be with the Kauravas. I read their hearts clearly and see the darkness in them, but there is always hope. Suppose by a miracle they decide to give back the Pandavs' kingdom because of my embassy. All men deserve every chance to save themselves. Dhritarashtra and his son do as well. Most of all, the house of Kuru deserves a final chance to save itself. If I did not do everything I can to stop this war, I would fail in my dharma. So here I am, to try to drag Duryodhan and his brothers back from the edge of a chasm. As for Yudhishthir, he still says he wants peace. Vidura, I know you will understand me when I tell you that Yudhishthir is the greatest man born into this age. Most of all, I have come here for his sake, to clear his name of any taint, so the world will remember his greatness forever. Let the people know that it is not just anyone whom Duryodhan has sinned against, but the truest, most compassionate man on earth. Let the kings who have flocked to Duryodhan's serpent banner know against whom they are going to war. Let them realize they mean to fight on the side of the evil, and let their arrogant hearts tremble a little. Yes, this is why I have come, to let Bhishma know, and Drona and Krip know, and the others, that they clasped danger to their souls when they chose to fight against the sons of Pandu. They cannot escape this truth. Let them see it clearly. Now Krishna sighed. Ah, Vidur, how I wish this war could be avoided. I don't think even Yudhishthir or you or any of the others realize how terrible it will be. But I fear that not all our prayers can prevent it. I have come to make it clear on which side Dharam lies. and on which adharam? That is my real mission. Gentle Vidur, you are the only Kuru in Hastinapur on the side of truth. That is why I'm staying in your home. But let us speak of other things, because tomorrow I must be fresh for what I have come to say in Dhritarashtra's Sabha. Late into the night, they sat talking of many things, of Dwarka, of awesome kings of the past, and how rapidly the times diminished until they turned into sleep. They spoke of anything but the war. Next chapter in the court of Hastinapur. The next morning, Duryodhana and Karan came with retinue to take Krishna to Dhritarashtra's Sabha. Krishna went into his chariot with Satyaki. Duryodhana and Karan followed in Duryodhana's chariot, and Kritvarman, who was also in the city, came after them. Kritvarman is one of the Yadavs. A legion of elephant and horse followed the chariots through the streets of Hastinapur, choked with the people turned out to catch a glimpse of the blue savior. The dark one was radiant as he alighted at the palace steps and climbed them with Vidura and Satyaki on either side. Karan and Duryodhan went before Krishna, leading him solemnly into the Dhritarashtra's court. Kritvarman walked behind them. When Krishna entered the Kuru Sabha, all the elders, including the blind king, Bhishma and Drona, rose. Once more Krishna was shown to the place of honor, and just as he was about to sit, he saw Narad at the door to the Sabha. Some other rishis, Bhishma rose to welcome the sages. Krishna waited for them to be seated and only then sat. Dushashan showed Satyaki to a majestic chair, and his brother Vimipsati brought Kritvarman to another. Next to Krishna sat Vidur, not far from them. To their left, Karan and Duryodhan shared a wide seat for two, and Shakuni sat beside them. Every gaze in the Sabha was riveted to the Avatar's face. They gazed at him helplessly and could not have their fill. He was more god than man today, but gentle and handsome. It was as if the Kuru Sabha was elevated into a finer realm. Because Krishna graced it in his Xanthic robe, he was like a blue mountain. Xanthic means like a yellow color. That's another name for yellow color. He was like a blue mountain with the sun rising over it, and the Kaustubh ruby on his breast was a gleaming secret. The Sabha sat staring raptly at him, and he sat smiling at them. For a long moment, there was silence in that court. Then Krishna addressed Dhritarashtra. My lord, I have come to Hastinapur to prevent the deaths of all these Kshatriyas. I have come to make peace between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. I am glad I have come at a time when most of what needs to be said has already been debated in this Sabha. Everything is known, and there is not much I have to add to the words of the wise. They listened to him entranced. There was that quality in his voice. Since the most ancient days, the house of Kuru is a legend upon the earth. The world knows that yours is the oldest house in Bharatvarsh. Generations of Kuru kings have ruled vast kingdoms, and they have all been renowned for their justice and their mercy. He paused, looked around. A slight smile still played on his face. Dhritarashtra, it does not become you that you are the first king in your line to be so different from your sires. Dhritarashtra shivered in his throne. Krishna continued, your sons plunge down a blind alley of sin. They think nothing of fighting a murderous war in which millions shall die. It is for you to stop them. You are the king of the Kurus, my lord, and not your son. You must stop this madness. This is not the time for weakness and vacillation. You must assert yourself as you should have done long ago. Having left it so long, it will be harder for you now, but it can still be done if you assume the firmness that every king should have. The first step is to think kindly of your brother's sons. Think of them not as enemies to be feared, but as your own children, your own soldiers, who will make you lord of the earth. Unite this house again, Dhritarashtra, as it should have always been. Already there is no kingdom to rival this one. For Bhishma protects it. Drona and Krip, Karan, Vimipsati, Ashvathama, Jayadratha, Somdat, and Duryodhan. But just think what the glory of the house of Kuru would be if you added the names of the Pandavas and their sons to those, as it has never been before. If you can bring the Pandavas and the Kauravas together, your fame will be sung in heaven as well as the earth. Yet it seems you prefer to quote shame and ruin rather than glory. Tell me, Dhritarashtra, what will this war bring you except the death of your sons? Now his voice was stern, and the death of some millions of fighting men and of all these Kshatriyas gathered here to prepare the madness your son has planned. You have everything to lose by this war and nothing to gain. Look at this court of Dharam, defiled by this council met to plot a war between brother and brother, while its elders sit here and do nothing to stop the enormous sin. Never since the Kuru kingdom was founded, in time out of mind, has this Sabha seen such shame. This is no Sabha anymore, my lord, but a den of vice. Do not take what I say lightly because I speak with love. I say to you, return what is his to you, Yudhishthir. Bring back Dharam to your kingdom, which yearns for it. If you don't make the just choice, this land will be ruined past redemption, and with it, the world. He spoke so gravely that no one dared interrupt him. His words struck all of them deeply, and what he said frightened them. At last, Dhritarashtra broke the silence. Krishna, don't you realize how helpless I am? I do not rule this land, and what I say is of little consequence. My sons are the masters here, and they have no regard for my wishes anymore. If you can persuade Duryodhana and his brothers, and Karan and Shakuni, who wield more power than I do, I will be grateful to you forever. But I fear your task is hopeless. We have all tried to reason with Duryodhana to no avail. Bhishma has tried, Vidura and even Gandhari, and I have too. He is stubborn and determined to sacrifice us all. Still, if you can succeed where the rest of us failed, no one will be more in your debt than I. Duryodhana sat sullen and fierce. Krishna turned to him kindly. Listen to me, Duryodhana. You are a son of the noblest house in all Bharatvarsh. Why do you behave as if you were born in the streets? Why has your mind turned to such pettiness? What you mean to do will not cover you in honor as you imagine. It will fetch you eternal infamy. Turn away from this folly, Kshatriya, resume your true nature. Forsake the hatred that consumes you from within. Be the good Duryodhana again, whom the world loves. Perhaps you think it is too late for you to turn back. No man ever falls so low that he is past redemption, and least of all a prince with as generous a heart as you have. This is the hour of an historic decision, Duryodhana. Do you want to be remembered as the man who destroyed the world, or the one who had the courage to save it? For it will take more courage to turn your face away from sin than it will for you to be obstinate. Choose wisely, Duryodhana, and be the bravest Kshatriya of the Kuru line. Make your father and your grandfather happy, your gurus and your mother proud. Change the course of destiny. You still can. Duryodhana had grown pale, and he sat stiller than ever. Krishna went on, his power deeply upon the Sabha. There are three kinds of men in this world, Duryodhana. There are the selfless ones who seldom leave the path of Dharma. Then there are those who seek their own benefit in whatever they do. Even if that is your nature, you should think wisely of what will profit you. Death surely will not. If you want to be king in Hastinapura, won't it be better if you have the Pandavas' support rather than their enmity? If you make peace with him, Yudhishthir will crown you Yuvraj of this city, and after your father's time, you will be king of the Kurus. The Pandavas will be content with Indraprasth, never be a threat to you, and with your cousins on your side, who else will dare challenge you? Duryodhana's face twitched in contempt. He exchanged a scornful smile with Karan. Krishna paused. Then his voice softer said, there is also the third kind of man who lives to sin because nothing else pleases him. His unnatural thirst is satisfied only with the blood. Duryodhana, you are not that kind of a man, are you? Cast off your old life as a snake does his skin. Emerge anew as a king of truth. Make this age the brightest one in history. You hold the future of the world in your palm. Only you can save it. Bhishma cried. Listen to him, Duryodhan. Make a new beginning, I beg you. Do it in your mother's name for her sake. Drona urged. Krishna speaks the truth, Duryodhan. This can be your moment of greatness. You can do this, my prince. Your heart is big enough. Only the first step is hard. The rest will come easily. Vidura said, if you don't listen to wisdom, it's not yourself you will hurt most, but your mother and father. I pity them that they will have to survive their eldest son and most likely all their sons who will look after them in their dotage. Bhishma begged him again and Drona as well. Duryodhana had not spoken a word, but only listened grimly to their united entreaty. Vidura said, Duryodhana, the choice is so simple between death and life. Why do you hesitate? Next chapter, Duryodhana and Krishna. Though his eyes were restless, Duryodhana had listened patiently to everything Krishna said. Now he rose and addressed Krishna quietly, reasonably. You spoke eloquently, Krishna, and all that you said was for me. All the blame. My father and my grandfather also point their fingers at me, as do my acharyas and my uncle Vidur. I have tried to see your point of view, but I am afraid I can't, because this is not nearly as simple as you make it out to be. Let me tell you my version of whatever has happened so far. We asked Yudhishthira to play dice, and he agreed readily enough. He enjoys the game more than I do anyway. We did not force him to play, and it was not as if he did not know from the start that he was to play against Shakuni. Yudhishthira lost his kingdom at dice. How do you blame me for that? I did not decide what the stakes would be. I did not sit in my cousin's place and play rashly for him. It is easy to accuse me if you think about it. How am I responsible? Yudhishthir was foolhardy and he was unlucky. How is Duryodhan to blame for that? This court knows I returned everything he lost to me. But you say it was my fault he came back to play a second time and lost it all once more. How am I responsible for his stupidity that he thought he could play an acknowledged master of dice like Shakuni? And does my cousin wager some 1,000 gold coins as other kings do? No. He wagers his entire treasury, then his army, then his kingdom, and finally his brothers, himself, and his queen. Wasn't this an emperor's arrogance? How am I to blame for it? Didn't I return his brothers and his wife to him? Didn't I set him free, though he had lost himself to me? Yet I am to blame. Krishna sat smiling faintly. None of the others spoke. The Kaurav continued. And not only all of you, but my cousins also have decided that I am to blame for their misfortunes. Do I control the motions of the planets that decide what happens to every man on this earth? They have joined forces with the Panchal king, whom these same Pandavas once attacked for Acharya Drona's revenge. Now they mean to fight us together. For what? For something they imagine I did to them. I did nothing. Their troubles were of their own making, and I am not afraid of Pandu's sons. His voice rose. As long as my conscience is clear, I will never fear them or anyone else. Why I would not fear Indra himself? We will not bow to their threats. We have Bhishma and Drona with us. Krip, Karan and Ashwathama are with me. No power on earth can stand against these men. And as for me, when I accept the Pandav's challenge, I only honor the way of the Kshatriya. My dharma is to fight. If I must, I will die fighting. Otherwise, I will make a bed of arrows for my enemies to sleep on forever. Isn't that Kshatriya dharma? To fight and either die or be killed? The warrior that dies without bowing his head to his enemy goes straight to heaven. Then why do you ask me to humiliate myself so I can save my life? What will my miserable life be worth if I save it like that? I prefer to die without having submitted in spirit than to live as less than a king. This is the law every Kshatriya is born into, and it is the only dharma I acknowledge. I mean to live or die by it, as fate decides. He paused, and looked around him. Silence still greeted his bold words, and the smile still played on Krishn's lips. Duryodhan drew a breath and resumed. As for Indraprasth, I know my father gave it to the sons of Pandu when the Kuru kingdom was divided. I was against what he did then, but I could not say anything. Today I rule an undivided kingdom. Indraprasth and Hastinapura are mine. And as long as there is life in this body, I will not part with any of my lands. Now Duryodhan loomed over the Sabha, dominating it darkly. He looked straight at Krishna and said, Mark my words, Krishna, lodge them in your heart. I will not give the Pandavas a mote of my kingdom, not even what would cover the point of a needle. Duryodhan remained staring defiantly at Krishna after he had spoken, and it was as if a shadow fell over them all. Then Krishna laughed. It was a terrible laugh, as none of them had heard from him before. At once a mocking laugh, a sad and wrathful laugh, and the Kurus trembled to hear it. Krishna rose, still smiling, but now his eyes were crimson. Somehow Duryodhan faced the avatar as he was then. It seemed primeval. Forces of darkness and light tested each other as the Yadav and the Kaurav stood with gazes locked across the Sabha. Calmly, Krishna said, if you really want a bed on a battlefield to lie on forever, you shall have one. You have always got whatever you wanted, haven't you, Duryodhan? So be it then. As you say, let fate take her course. Be strong, O prince, be firm, for in just some days there will be a slaughter that you cannot dream of, and its bloody mist you will meet the death you long for, you and all those that are with you. Krishna had not raised his voice. He spoke almost sadly, or at least only with anger born of grief. You dare tell me you have caused the Pandavas no suffering, that you are not to blame at all for what they endured these 13 years. You dare? And in this Sabha of wise men who know you since your infancy, who know every sin you have ever committed, well, let them decide whether any guilt attaches to you or not. I knew how fiercely you would argue today, Duryodhan, how glibly. That is why I came here, and not because I had any real hope of convincing you to return to Dharam. I am sure all these wise men have heard your clever arguments often enough. Now let them hear another point of view and decide which one is true. You were consumed by envy when Yudhishthir performed the Rajasuya Yajna. Already you had tried to kill your cousins more than once because you hated them from the moment they came home out of the wilds. When you saw the wealth of Indraprasth and the splendor of Mayasabha, you could not bear your envy any longer. I am not sure whether it was you or your uncle Shakuni who decided to conquer the Pandavas at a game of dice. Probably Shakuni thought of it. It sounds like what he would prefer, a battle he could not lose. You would have gone to war if the choice were yours. That is more your nature. Even if the plan was Shakuni's as first, you embraced it readily enough. You did not protest that it was a perfidious way to quench your envy of the sons of Pandu, to humiliate them, to destroy them if you could. The plan worked well. Yudhishthir accepted your challenge. Poor high-minded king. Exactly as you had calculated, he lost his reason at this game that did not suit him at all. Don't tell me, Duryodhan, that you believed Yudhishthir stood a chance of winning at dice against Shakuni. Don't tell me the game was played in friendly spirit with no harm intended. You could have stopped the game any time you chose, but it was not to stop that you had begun. You did not stop until Yudhishthir had lost everything and his very honor that day, and you say you are guilty of no crime? Do you take anyone in this Sabha for a fool? As if the game of the dice was not enough, you had your brother haul Panchali into this court. He dragged her in by her hair, and all these great men heard what you said to her then. Your cousin's wife, how you called her to sit in your lap. And then your brother, this grinning Dushashan, tried to strip that queen naked in this hallowed Sabha. Krishna's voice was almost a whisper now. What he said was reverent. And you tell me no blame attaches to you? And you are an innocent man? Well, I have come here to learn how such a paragon of dharma like you, Duryodhan, chooses to fight a war in which millions shall die brutally when Yudhishthir still offers you peace. Krishan's eyes blazed again. You are no innocent, Duryodhan. You are the most evil man that draws breath in this world. Why do you try to deceive us? Or is it yourself you need to deceive? Or do your sins weigh on you so heavily that you no longer know what dharma is? That you no longer see right from wrong, good from evil, darkness from light? They all shifted uneasily in their places to hear him. No conscience in that sabha, save Vidur's, was clear. Krishna said, Duryodhan, you are beneath contempt, and fell silent. Dushashan sprang up and cried angrily, Duryodhan, you will be forced to make cowardly peace with Yudhishthir. It is clear that Bhishma, Drona, and our father mean to bind us hand and foot, you, Karan, and me, and deliver us into this wily Krishna's hands. Why should you tolerate their speaking to you like this in your own court? Who is Krishna that we must listen to his lofty judgments here? The world knows he is partial to the sons of Kunti. After all, they are his blood and not we. Duryodhan was on his feet. He glared at Krishna for a moment, then contemptuously at the others. Without another word but a hiss like an angry cobra's, he stalked out of the court. In a moment, all his brothers, advisers, and the kings, who were his allies, also left. The sabha was almost empty. Bhishma watched his grandson's arrogant exit, sadly knowing its full significance. However, he also felt a sense of relief as if a long and heavy burden had been taken from him. The worst he had feared, the unthinkable, had happened. Now there was no looking back. Bhishma, who had served the house of Kuru for so long, felt his own end drawn near. At last he felt perfectly helpless and almost glad of it. He turned to Krishna with a sigh. I have done everything I could to prevent this, but I see that I have outlived my usefulness. The hour of reckoning is here. Duryodhan is past saving. Doom has finally come, the house of Kuru. Ah, Krishna, a sea of blood will flow. In all my life, I have never had such prescience of tragedy as I do now. Not just the Kurus, but Kshatriya kind will perish in the war that is upon us. He stared quizzically at dark Krishna. Sensing the avatar knew immeasurably more of what he, Bhisham, prophesied than he did himself. Yes, Krishna knew all about why the apocalyptic war must be fought. He had come to the earth to wash it with just this enormous bloodletting. Krishna stared gravely back at the tired old Kshatriya. Bhisham sighed again and murmured, Yes, the time is ripe. I can feel it in every cell of my body. The war will be the end of the world as we have known it, and the beginning of an inconceivably different age. Am I right, O Krishna, who know all things? Krishna said, I blame all of you for what will happen. You could have nipped this evil bloom in its bud. Instead, you nurtured it carefully and helped it grow until it chokes us all. If you could not kill him, why didn't you lock Duryodhan away in the darkest dungeon? Are you so blinded by filial love that you still do not see who this prince is? He is a monster, a demon born into the world for its destruction. But there is one final hope I offer you, O elders of Hastinapura. Listen to me. I do not speak idly. When my uncle Kans was a tyrant in Mathura, I killed him, though he was my own blood. Since the world was young, the wise have said that one man may be sacrificed if he threatens the welfare of the family. One family if it threatens the village. One village if it threatens the kingdom. And the very kingdom if one's immortal soul is imperiled. I ask you to undo the evil you have nourished in this sabha. The method is simple, if drastic, but consider how much less drastic than the war you plan. 4 men stand between the very earth and peace. You must sacrifice them. Bind Duryodhan, Dushashan, Karan, and Shakuni. Make them over to the Pandavas. Listen to me, O elders, and save Kshatriya kind. It was as if the avatar tried fate. He still doubted the savage mission for which he had been born and sought any means to avoid the war he knew must ineluctably be fought. Dhritarashtra grew very still at what Krishna said. He turned to Vidur. Go and fetch Gandhari. She is the only one who might still turn our son back to Dharam. Poised and regal, her eyes bound as always, Gandhari came into the sabha. She allowed Vidur to lead her by the hand before the king. The Kuru queen said, My lord, you have summoned me to the sabha today. What is the matter? Duryodhana walked out of the sabha, insulting Krishna and all the elders. He will not listen to anyone, but is determined to have war with the Pandavas. He wants to ruin us all. For a moment, Gandhari stood silent before her husband. Then she said, My lord Vidur, fetch Duryodhana back. Say his mother calls him here. When Vidur had gone, she turned to Dhritarashtra again. I prayed the day would never come when I had to say this to you. This kingdom does not deserve to be ruled by an evil prince like my son. It breaks my heart to say it, but he has plunged us all into the depths of hell. And you, my lord, are most to blame. I begged you not to give such absolute power into Duryodhana's hands, but you are a doting father, and you would not listen to me. You have made him king in your place while you still live. More, you have walked down the path of sin with him willingly. Even now, only your fear turns you back. Dhritarashtra, you are the king of such a great kingdom. If he cares for them at all, does a good king make a prince like Duryodhana a virtual ruler of his people? Just think, wouldn't they rather have Yudhishthir as their sovereign? Wouldn't they have profited richly from it? Wouldn't we all instead? She broke off. As they heard Duryodhana's angry tread in the sabha, Gandhari turned. Duryodhan, is that you? Yes, mother, it is I. What do you want from me? His voice was stiff with annoyance. I am your mother, and all I can ever want is for you to be safe and happy. My son, it is neither easy nor pleasant to be the king of a great country. A man must first be a master of himself before he can rule a kingdom. Otherwise, he will drag both his people and himself into ruin. How can anyone who has not conquered himself dream of conquering his enemies? Duryodhana, a man's worst enemies are within himself, his weaknesses. They derange his mind, and he sees enemies all around him, while in truth he himself is his only enemy. The mother held her hands out to her son. She said, Don't you trust me, Duryodhana? This is I who speak, that love you most, but I will not lie to you or encourage you when you rush towards your death. Duryodhana made no move to take her outstretched hands. She sighed, let her arms fall to her sides again, and said with deep sorrow, My son, it is time you heard what I am about to tell you. On the night you were born, omens of evil besieged this city in warning. The feral creatures of darkness flocked into our streets. Jackals and wolves howled at us. Vultures and swarms of bats wheeled across the face of the moon. Peals of thunder shook heaven and earth, and gashes of lightning flared not from the sky to the earth, but from the earth up into the heavens. In many places, it rained blood. That night, Vidur said the child born to us would cause the end of the world, as we know it. But I could not imagine my son would be evil. How could he, when I had always kept dharam? Also, alas, I was wrong, and the omens were true. Her son stood before her, made to ice. As she described that long ago night, a smile flickered on his lips. He said nothing. Gandhari begged him, My child, abandon the thought of war. You have no right to put the lives of millions in jeopardy for the sake of your greed and your hatred. I know you think that Pitama Bhishma, Acharya Drona, and your Karan will vanquish the Pandavas. But your cousins have an ally who is greater than all these men, greater than the gods even. Dharam is with them. Then Krishna is with the Pandavas, and Arjun is one of them. These two alone can subdue Indra's Devas and all the Asurs in Patal. Don't you know who they are? They are Nar Narayan. But how would you know that? You are so full of yourself and your own darkness. Duryodhan, if you won't listen to anyone else, at least you will not ignore what I'm saying to you. You cannot fight Dharam, my son. Dharam is eternal. You, your brothers, and everyone who fights for you will die. A sob shook her. Her voice dropping to a whisper, she said, and the earth shall be made pure again. Gandhari broke down and wept. Her son still stood with the same mocking smile on his lips. When his mother had finished, he did not say a word to answer her. He turned on his heel and without a glance at anyone in the Sabha, Duryodhana walked out again. Let's stop the reading here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.